Asia was launched in 1780 and made 6 voyages as an East Indiaman for the British East India Company. She participated in 3 actions, 2 against the French and 1 against the Dutch. She left the EIC service in 1799 and traded between London and Lisbon until 1802, when new owners from Embden renamed her Reine Louise de Prusse, and returned her to trading with the East Indies. Asia is last listed in Lloyd's register for 1808 on the London-Batavia trade. EIC voyages. EIC voyage number 1. Asia, under the command of Captain Robert Moore, sailed from Portsmouth on the 13th of March 1781, bound for Bombay and China as part of a convoy of Indiamen accompanying a British squadron under Commodore George Johnston. At about the same time as the British sailed, a French squadron under the command of Bailly de Suffren left France. Both squadrons were en route to the Cape of Good Hope, the British to take it from the Dutch, the French aiming to help defend it and French possessions in the Indian Ocean, including Rodriguez Island, Isle Bourbon, Isle de France, and Pondicherry. The British stopped at Santiago to take on water, with Asia arriving on the 10th of April. The French squadron attacked the British on the 16th of April in the Battle of Porto Praya. Due to the unexpected nature of the encounter, neither fleet was prepared to do battle, and the result was an inconclusive battle in which the French warships sustained more damage than did the British. Though the battle was inconclusive, it did enable the French to forestall the British attack on the Cape. The British sailed on to the Cape, with Asia arriving there on the 21st of July. At the Cape, Johnston captured 5 Dutch East Indiamen at the Battle of Saldanha Bay. The British Indiamen then sailed on, directly, or indirectly, to India. Asia sailed to Johanna, which she reached on the 3rd of September. The convoy left Johanna on 21 of the 22nd of September, but ran into an adverse monsoon that drove the vessels to the coast of Arabia, and especially the 4 Indiamen Asia, Latham, Loco, and Osterley were driven further to Kisan Bay, near the Bab el Mandeb. The Indiamen were carrying the 2nd Battalion of the 42nd Regiment of Foot. They remained there for some 6 weeks as the indigenes were friendly and the vessels could procure fresh food. The Highlanders entertained the indigenes with bagpipe music and danced the Highland Fling. The indigenes reciprocated with a war dance involving shields and spears. The Indiamen arrived at Mocha on the 4th of December. Asia's logbook puts her at Kisham on the 5th of December. Whether this was Kashti and she was not with the other 3, or Kisan Bay, is currently an open question. They then sailed out of the Red Sea, with Asia reaching Bombay on the 4th of March, 2 days before the others. A voyage that would take a copied vessel not facing adverse winds about 2.5 weeks had taken the 4 Indiamen 5.5 months. Asia left Bombay on the 8th of August in company with the Indiaman Loco, Essex, and Osterley, and the country ship Shah Biram Gaur. As the squadron was sailing through the Strait of Malacca on the 9th of September, the ships encountered the 38-gun French frigate Pour Voyages, which was under the command of Captain de Lanigui Tromelin. After an engagement the next day that lasted some 2.5 hours and in which Osterley had 2 men killed, and Loco and Essex had several men injured from exploding cartridges, Pour Voyages withdrew. On the 5th of October, Asia reached Whampoa anchorage. On the 4th of January 1783, Loco, Osterley, and Asia left Whampoa. On the 22nd of January, Loco parted company with Essex and Osterley in the Straits of Lombon by one account, and on the 23rd near Karimata, by another account. Loco and Asia then parted company on the 30th of January at St. Clement's Bank, Peel's Moorcop. These are probably St. Clement's Reef and Pulo Mancap at the lower end of the Karamata Strait. Asia reached St. Helena on the 17th of June and arrived at the Downs on the 28th of October. After the return to Britain of the 4 captains of the Indiaman that participated in the action on the 10th of September 1782, the EIC awarded them prizes. Robert Moore received a silver salver made in 1787 by Joseph Heriot of London, and inscribed, "The gift of the Honble East India Company to Robert Moore Esq, commander of the Asia East Indiaman, for gallantly defending the said ship against a French frigate of 44 guns in the Straits of Malacca, September 1782. EIC Voyage No. 2 Captain John Davy Ffoulkes left Portsmouth on the 10th of March 1785, bound for Bencoolen in China. Asia reached Bencoolen on the 2nd of July. She then sailed to Padang, which she reached on the 5th of August before returning to Bencoolen on the 19th of August. Asia arrived at Whampoa on the 30th of October. She left on the 5th of March 1786, reached St. Helena on the 24th of June, and arrived at Blackwall, London, on the 20th of September. EIC Voyage No. 3, Captain Ffoulkes left Portsmouth on the 5th of April 1788, bound for Bombay in China. Asia reached Johanna on the 6th of July and arrived at Bombay 20 days later. She reached Batavia on the 25th of November, and arrived at Whampoa on the 8th of February 1789. She reached St. Helena on the 25th of June and arrived at Blackwall on the 3rd of September. EIC Voyage No. 4, Captain Ffoulkes left the Downs on the 26th of April 1791, bound for Madras and Bengal. Asia reached Madeira on the 9th of May and arrived at Madras on the 10th of September. On the 8th of November she arrived at Diamond Harbour. Asia returned to Madras on the 3rd of March 1792, and sailed to Bencoolen, which she reached on the 18th of April. She then reached St. Helena on the 26th of August and arrived at Blackwall on the 2nd of November. EIC Voyage No. 5, Captain John Davy Ffoulkes received a letter of marque on the 6th of December 1793. However, he did not sail Asia from Portsmouth, bound for Madras and Bengal, until the 2nd of May 1794. She reached Madras on the 11th of September and arrived at Diamond Harbour on the 15th of October. Homeward bound, she passed Sawgore on the 16th of December. By the 31st of January 1795 she was at Madras again, and then by the 24th of May she was at St. Helena. Between 14th and the 18th of June Asia participated in the capture of 7 Dutch ships off St. Helena. When HMS Sceptre arrived at St. Helena in May she brought the news that France had invaded the Netherlands in January. Furthermore, under an order dated the 9th of February 1795, Royal Navy vessels and British letters of marque were to detain Dutch vessels and cargoes and bring them into British ports that they might be detained provisionally. Then on the 2nd of June the British East India Company packet ship Swallow arrived from the Cape of Good Hope with the news that a convoy of Dutch East Indiamen had left the Cape, sailing for the Netherlands. Captain Essington of Sceptre formed a squadron to try and intercept the Dutch. Providentially, the General Goddard and East Indiaman under the command of Captain William Taylor Money was resting at St. Helena while on her way back to England. The small squadron intercepted 8 Dutch vessels, which surrendered on the 15th of June. The HEIC ships Busbridge, Captain Samuel Maitland, and Asia, Captain Ffoulkes, arrived on the scene and helped board the Dutch vessels. There were no casualties on either side. The British then brought the prizes into St Helena on the 17th of June. By the 13th of September, Asia had reached the River Shannon, and by the 27th of October she was at Blackwall. Because the capture of the Dutch vessels had occurred before Britain declared war on the Batavian Republic, the vessels became droits to the Crown. Still, prize money, in the amount of 2/3 of the value of the Dutch ships, amounted to £76,664.14. Of this, £61,331.15 was distributed among the officers and crew of Sceptre, General Goddard, Busbridge, Asia, and Swallow. The remainder went to the garrison at St Helena, and various vessels in the St Helena roads. 33 years later, in July 1828, there was a small final payment. EIC Voyage No. 6. Captain Fowkes left Portsmouth on the 12th of April 1796, bound for Madras, Bengal, Bombay, and China. By the 21st of July, Asia was at Simon's Bay, and she reached Madras on the 16th of November. On the 20th of December she was at Trincomalee before returning to Madras on the 4th of January 1797. She arrived at Kedgeree on the 1st of February. She then followed the Indian coast to Anjangad, which she reached on the 17th of April, and then Mahé on the 30th of April and Bombay on the 7th of June. She reached Penang on the 3rd of September, and arrived at Whampoa on the 20th of December. Asia reached St Helena on the 5th of August 1798, and arrived at Blackwall on the 9th of November. Later career. In 1799, Beatson and Amp Co., London, purchased Asia to sail between London and Lisbon. Then on the 31st of February 1802, Beatson sold her to buyers in Embden, who renamed her Reine Louise de Prusse. She returned to the Far East trade. Lloyd's register for 1804 gives her trade as London-Batavia. She is last listed in Lloyd's register for 1808 on the London-Batavia trade. Her subsequent career and fate are unknown.